Hello guys, I'm Tom, and today we'll see what the G-virus is. One of the most dangerous, terrifying, and lethal compounds ever created by humanity is the G-virus. Developed by the Umbrella Corporation, this virus not only defies the laws of biology, but also rewrites the very concept of life and death. Unlike other pathogens such as the T-virus, the G-virus has a unique ability to transform its hosts into increasingly powerful and monstrous creatures in a way that not only destroys their bodies, but also their minds. That's why, in this video, we'll explore in depth what makes the G-virus so terrifying and how its existence has left an indelible mark on the Resident Evil universe. Additionally, we'll examine the devastating effects it has on its victims, its long-term consequences, and how some have managed, if only briefly, to find ways to resist or survive this deadly infection. The G-virus, also known as the Golgotha Virus, is one of the most advanced biological weapons ever created by the Umbrella Corporation. It was developed by scientist William Birkin as part of an ambitious project aimed at surpassing the limitations of the T-virus and opening new possibilities in the artificial evolution of living organisms. Its creation was the result of decades of research based on the progenitor virus, which served as the foundation for many of Umbrella's biological weapons. To understand the origins of the G-virus, we must go back to the research on the progenitor virus, a viral agent discovered in Africa by Umbrella's founders, Oswell E. Spencer, James Marcus, and Edward Ashford, in the 1960s. This virus possessed extraordinary properties, such as the ability to enhance strength, regeneration, and resilience in infected organisms. However, it also caused uncontrollable mutations and adverse effects in most test subjects. From the progenitor virus, Marcus successfully developed the T-virus, whose primary goal was to turn infected individuals into controllable biological weapons known as BOWs, bioorganic weapons. However, the T-virus had clear limitations. Most infected subjects turned into mindless zombies, suffering from cellular degeneration that rendered them ineffective in long-term combat. One of Umbrella's brightest researchers, William Birkin, spent years perfecting the T-virus, but he soon became obsessed with the idea of creating a virus capable of generating progressive and adaptive mutations, rather than mere cadaveric reanimations. His goal was to design a pathogen that would allow infected organisms to continuously evolve, regenerate rapidly, and adapt to any hostile environment. By the late 1980s, William Birkin successfully developed the first functional version of the G-virus in the underground laboratories of Raccoon City. Unlike the T-virus, which merely reanimated dead tissue or created defective BOWs, the G-virus could trigger uncontrollable biological evolution, allowing the infected to regenerate at astonishing speeds and mutate progressively in response to damage or external threats. The initial tests on lab subjects were shocking. Those infected with the G-virus underwent extreme mutations, developing new organs, abnormal growths, and an exponential increase in strength and resilience. However, a concerning limitation was also discovered. The virus required a genetically compatible host to avoid uncontrollable deformities. In most cases, subjects turned into grotesque abominations, devoid of consciousness or rationality, driven only by the urge to reproduce the virus through the creation of parasitic embryos. Despite the breakthroughs achieved with the G-virus, William Birkin began to distrust the Umbrella Corporation. Convinced that the company would try to steal his work and eliminate him, he decided to negotiate directly with the United States military, offering them his research in exchange for protection. However, in September 1998, the Umbrella Corporation deemed William Birkin a threat to the company. His obsession with the G-virus and his refusal to hand over his research results concerned the higher-ups, who feared that the scientist might act in his own interest or even betray Umbrella. Faced with this situation, the company made the drastic decision to eliminate him and recover his work by force. To accomplish this, Umbrella deployed an elite squad of the Umbrella Security Service, led by Hunk, a highly trained and lethal operative. Their mission was to infiltrate Birkin's underground laboratories, known as Nest, and secure the G-virus samples. The operation was swift and efficient. The soldiers managed to storm the lab and confront Birkin before he could escape. However, the scientist was not willing to surrender. During the confrontation, Birkin attempted to resist, but was severely shot by Umbrella agents. Believing him to be dead, the soldiers secured the G-virus samples and proceeded to withdraw. However, they did not anticipate Birkin's final act of desperation. Agonizing and aware of his impending death, the scientist resorted to his only remaining option. He injected himself with the G-virus. The G-virus reacted immediately within Birkin's body, triggering an accelerated mutation. His biology began to reconfigure at an alarming rate, granting him regenerative capabilities, superhuman musculature, and an insatiable killing instinct. What was once a brilliant scientist had become a grotesque being, an abomination with a single purpose: to destroy those who had harmed him and spread his creation. In his new form, Birkin tracked down the Umbrella soldiers, brutally attacked them, and massacred them without mercy. Most were torn apart in a matter of seconds, while others were left unrecognizable after being mutilated by the creature's claws. Among the victims was the squad carrying the G-virus samples. Amid the chaos of the attack, the virus vials were spilled and leaked into the sewers of Raccoon City, an event that would mark the beginning of the greatest biological catastrophe in the city's history. The virus's contact with the local fauna, particularly the rats inhabiting the sewer system, facilitated its spread. The rodents, after ingesting the contaminated remains, became vectors of infection, transmitting the virus through the sewer network and contaminating the water supply. Within days, the T-virus, already present in the city due to previous experiments, and the G-virus began to spread uncontrollably, sealing Raccoon City's fate. As the biological disaster unfolded, Dr. Annette Birkin, William's wife, and also a scientist at Umbrella, attempted to contain the situation. Despite her loyalty to the corporation, Annette was aware of the dangerous mutations the G-virus could cause and understood the catastrophic consequences of its release. Determined to protect her work in the city, she embarked on a desperate mission to stop the virus's spread and destroy any evidence that could be used against her. However, Annette would soon face an even more heartbreaking dilemma. Her husband was no longer human. The creature William had become was incapable of reasoning, driven only by an instinct to evolve and reproduce, eliminating anything in its path. Motivated by both love and sorrow, Annette tried to contain him, but soon realized that the only solution was to stop him at all costs. With Raccoon City plunged into chaos and the G-virus spiraling out of control, the stage was set for the final confrontation between the survivors and the monstrous being that William Birkin had become. Now transformed into a monstrous abomination after injecting himself with the virus, he relentlessly pursues Leon S. Kennedy and Claire Redfield. Birkin's transformation into a regenerating beast makes him a constant threat throughout the game. The mutated creature seems obsessed with preserving the legacy of the G-virus, driving it to attack anyone who crosses its path without mercy. As the story progresses, players discover that Birkin was not only a victim of his own creation, but also used the virus to experiment on his own daughter, Sherry Birkin, who becomes infected with a G-virus embryo. Despite the severity of the infection, Claire and Leon manage to save her by administering an experimental vaccine, preventing the mutation from taking hold of the child. The game's climax takes place in Umbrella's laboratories, where Birkin, in his final form, transforms into an indescribable monstrosity. His ultimate form exhibits continuous evolution, growing multiple limbs and eyes, reflecting the G-virus's characteristic uncontrolled mutation. The laboratory's self-destruction marks the end of Birkin, but not of his legacy. Through his experiments, the G-virus would live on, spreading through Raccoon City. Documents and files found in Resident Evil 5 mention that the G-virus laid the foundation for the development of the C-virus, which would become one of the central threats in Resident Evil 6. This connection highlights how Birkin's experiments and the legacy of the G-virus continue to inspire the development of newer and more powerful bioweapons within Umbrella. The G-virus is an extremely dangerous pathogen, with its constant mutation being one of its most terrifying characteristics. Unlike other Umbrella viruses, such as the T-virus, which only causes zombification or transforms the infected into limited creatures, the G-virus goes far beyond that. It forces infected organisms to undergo uncontrollable and progressive evolution, turning them into unpredictable monsters. This continuous adaptation not only increases the strength and resilience of the infected, but also makes them highly unstable threats. The subjects can no longer be classified as creatures with a defined purpose or form, as the virus drives them into an endless transformation, making them increasingly dangerous. William Birkin was the first and most significant example of this uncontrollable mutation. After injecting the G-virus into his own body in a desperate act, his transformation began almost immediately. Over time, Birkin's form became more grotesque. Additional limbs emerged, his body grew excessively, and his face underwent a series of terrifying changes, displaying multiple eyes that randomly appeared across his body. This continuous mutation was not only visible physically, but also represented his total loss of control over his own body. Birkin's transformation is the perfect example of how the G-virus forces its hosts to lose their humanity, pushing them down an irreversible path of monstrous evolution. The G-virus promotes unlimited mutation, where infected creatures continue to change even after being defeated or seemingly eliminated in combat, making them constant threats. Another crucial characteristic of the G-virus is its extreme regeneration ability. Despite suffering massive damage, the virus grants the infected a unique ability to recover rapidly, forming new body parts from surviving cells. This makes infected subjects nearly impossible to permanently defeat. The regeneration is so efficient that they can reconstitute themselves and keep fighting even after being physically destroyed, adding another layer of terror to battles against them. William Birkin, in his most advanced form during the events of Resident Evil 2, is a clear example of this constant regeneration. His body is destroyed repeatedly, but he regenerates into new, even more monstrous forms, with each mutation making him more resilient and lethal. This self-repair ability turns infected creatures into persistent enemies, nearly impossible to eliminate definitively, representing a never-ending nightmare for those trying to stop the virus's spread. One of the most unsettling aspects of the G-virus is its parasitic reproduction capability. Those infected by the virus attempt to implant embryos into other organisms, seeking to spread the infection horizontally. However, only a few organisms are compatible with the virus, leading to new hybrid creatures and additional mutations. The most notable case of this parasitic reproduction is that of Sherry Birkin, William's daughter, who was infected with a G-virus larva. This larva was introduced into her body to cultivate the infection within her, turning her into a breeding ground for the virus. In Resident Evil 2, Sherry's infection becomes a central element of the story, as her life is in danger due to this parasitization. Although embryo implantation attempts may fail, the parasitic nature of the G-virus allows it to spread beyond physical transformations, making infected individuals carriers of the virus. As a result, infected creatures not only mutate, but also ensure the infection reaches new areas, guaranteeing that the G-virus threat continues to grow, even when attempts are made to eradicate it. Finally, the G-virus has a devastating effect on the mental control of its hosts. As the infected mutate and transform, they completely lose their humanity, and their minds are entirely erased. The loss of mental control is one of the most terrifying aspects of this virus, as it turns the infected into creatures driven solely by instinct. Subjects who were once human, like William Birkin, no longer have any self-awareness or control over their actions. They become emotionless monsters, devoid of empathy, with a single purpose: to spread the G-virus. Birkin, in his various mutations, becomes a completely dehumanized being, relentlessly pursuing anyone in his path with instinctual violence. The humanity of the infected is utterly destroyed, leaving behind only a creature driven by the virus's relentless drive for expansion. This transformation affects not only the body but also the mind, reflecting the complete annihilation of the individual by the power of the G-virus. And now that we've seen what the G-virus is and what it can do, I'll tell you what you should and should not do to defeat the G-virus. Surviving or even defeating the G-virus is no easy task, and unlike other viral infections in Resident Evil, this virus takes the threat to a completely new level. The creatures infected by the G-virus are more resilient and dangerous than those affected by other viruses, making facing them a true nightmare. However, if you ever find yourself in this terrifying situation, all is not lost. There are some methods that could help you survive. The first and most important thing is to avoid direct contact with the infected. The G-virus spreads mainly through direct contact and, especially, through parasitic infection. Infected subjects can transmit the virus by implanting embryos into other organisms, further expanding the infection. Therefore, if you find yourself in an affected area or in the presence of infected individuals, the best course of action is to keep your distance. If you are attacked, do not hesitate to use any long-range weapon, such as pistols or rifles, to avoid getting too close. Under no circumstances should you approach them. Secondly, keeping your weapons ready and aiming at the weak spots of the infected is crucial. The G-virus grants infected subjects an extreme regenerative ability. This means that even if you shoot them in the head, it won't be enough to stop them. The creatures infected by the G-virus have the capacity to recover quickly from damage, making them nearly impossible to permanently destroy. To counter them, you should aim at their limbs, especially at visible mutations such as additional eyes, tentacles, or areas of exposed tissue. By damaging these areas, you will reduce the virus's regenerative capacity and lower the chances that the creatures will remain a threat. If you're lucky enough to be near umbrella facilities or have access to advanced medical equipment, a cure or antidote could be your only hope. The healing process is not simple, as the G-virus lodges deeply in the body and integrates into the system in a complex way. Nevertheless, some versions of the virus have shown that it is possible to control or neutralize it with specific antidotes, as in the case of Sherry Birkin, who was infected with a G-virus larva. If you ever get the chance to access a cure, take advantage of it. Don't lose hope, because although the G-virus is terrifying, it can be treated in some cases. Another aspect you need to consider is the parasitic reproduction of the G-virus. Those infected with the virus attempt to implant embryos into other organisms in order to spread the infection. Although not all organisms are compatible with the virus, some may be affected, resulting in new mutated creatures. If you manage to detect any infected larvae or embryos, use any available means to destroy them before they develop. Allowing these embryos to grow can result in a massive spread of the virus and the creation of new threats, so it is crucial to eliminate any potential source of infection before it is too late. In addition to facing the infected creatures, you must be aware of the psychological impact of the G-virus. As the infected lose mental control and turn into beasts driven solely by instinct, it is crucial to keep your mind clear and your humanity intact. The G-virus is an enemy both physical and psychological. The infected no longer have any self-awareness or control over their actions, becoming ruthless beasts. In this scenario, your primary objective is to remain alert, avoid despair, and continue seeking solutions. If the virus begins to affect your mental health, seek shelter and remain calm. Do not let fear take over, as the virus can be as terrifying to your mind as it is to your body. Finally, if all else fails, the only reliable way to defeat someone infected by the G-virus, like William Birkin, is through complete destruction. In Resident Evil 2, Birkin was defeated by a combined attack and the self-destruction of Umbrella's laboratory, which not only destroyed the monster, but also eliminated any possibility of the virus spreading further. If you ever face a G-virus infection, keep in mind that completely eliminating it will be a titanic task, and total destruction is the only definitive method to eradicate the threat. And that is everything we know so far about the compound known as the G-virus. I first learned about the G-virus through related videos on the subject. I understood that there were different viruses, but there was a time when, to be honest, I thought they were all just T-virus. But let me know your opinion in the comments. Had you already heard of the G-virus? Do you think a virus this terrible could really exist? And finally, if you could inject yourself with the G-virus, would you do it? Share your answers to these questions and your general opinion about the G-virus from Resident Evil. As always, thank you very much for watching this video. I truly appreciate it. If you liked it, share it to support the channel, and don't forget to subscribe so you don't miss any of my new videos.